albums freeze mortality's stare. The lens is keen, it sees what it sees. The present deep cleans an encrusted past, then polishes it to a pristine sheen. Future scenes left alone develop on their own. Pare away the wrinkled pages, strip bare temporal confusion. Vanity's illusion brooms the dust. Search the phases of your soul. Find the last clock, make it whole. When the keeper sleeps, he loses control. So this is the title poem, No Time for Death. Time counts down for all of us. 10, 9, 8. None appreciate its flight, the path of no return. Too often we do a slow burn on a short fuse. A little fizzle, a stutter, then it's boom, baby. Our ashes rain down on every abandoned plane called nowhere. No time to complain, to prepare. Not a moment left to reflect, to regret. Our laying waste to all our powers. Time is an arbitrary asset. When we shatter the fragile hours, nothing remains in the bone man's sack. We cannot choose to refuse the invitation. We can only walk the walk on the streets of the dead. We can offer up prayers for life on some prefab plane where the CFO keeps a brittle book of our days. Maybe the weights will bounce in our favor. Maybe we shall come back to clean up loose ends. Maybe the sentence gets upended, gets suspended. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Will you stop for one forsaken minute? And the next there. This is a villanelle. It's called Until the Last Recorded Dime. When you have been broke a very long time, you forgo the champagne, but not the beer. Such is life when you live from dime to dime. Here's a deft complaint, you play the mime. You look in the mirror and face down fear. When you have been broke a very long time, you must defer to your reason and rhyme. To make the ascent, you shift to first gear. It's never easy, life from dime to dime. You can't stop the hands, the clock tolls the chime. So you grin and concoct a mask of cheer when you have been broke a very long time. Your efforts ease you into the sublime. You move to the beat only you can hear. You adapt when you live from dime to dime. Each day you wash away more of the grime. Your mind is full, but your focus is clear. You manage to manage after a time. No more holding your breath from dime to dime. This one is an old chestnut of mine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Almost a poet. Once upon a clock in a wound down time, in an hour starved to shadow, nibbled and nicked by razor seconds that flowed through a slit in its fabric. A bullet built a nest in a young soldier's brain, a youth so certain of forever. Only the old volunteer let forth breaks that called halt to breath. Death's surprise etched his eyes, strange to find a wildflower field to nevermore. In his mud-caked pockets, the medics found half-finished poems, verses penned in a dim light's halo. No closure, no end, unless a home flare the window of a soul with compass wings to dress new stanzas in bone and flesh. Okay, this one I wrote after a visit to my cardiologist. It's called So You Want to Be in Films. Act 1, Scene 1, Take 1. A genetic aberration, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, I can't even pronounce it. My heart has become a star. Hello, Hollywood, goodbye. My pulsing muscle stays here with me. I can't bear to be apart from it. The MRI, the cameras cover all the angles, close-ups and long shots. My heart is a hand. It performs an unscripted dance. A cocoon immerses me in Mozart's music. A tunnel floods with light. Still, I want to dream. The technician keeps me alert. Breathe, exhale, hold your breath. I am drowning in light. Film flashes forward. Visit to the cardiologist. An exchange of jests about the murmur. What's it saying? Then a picture chart explains the challenges to monitor the murmured refrain, a new take on the telltale heart. As asymptomatic, no pain or related symptoms, no end credits to roll. Then the pièce de résistance, the specialist flips a switch. There it is, stage center, the star. The doctor shows the area of the third rail, moderate aortic stenosis, case not closed. Not a 5-star rating, edgy, no holds barred, thoughtful, provoking, more than a lifetime of performances. No beta blockers yet, no edited film, no cutting floor projected. For now, the hot frets are minor. Later is a distant day. This is a wrap. Okay, so part of mortality, there are issues. One of the issues is addiction. And yes, that addiction I own. So here it is. It does not seem to be a sound solution to make a New Year's resolution to cure my aggravating albatross addiction. It may be a rather facile prediction that sweets will determine my termination or my Tootsie Pop terra firma. Hello, I am, who are you? My anonymous name tag boldly declares me to be a chocoholic. I paced and retraced the 12 exact steps to the kitchen cabinet where the cocoa treats are stored. My affliction is ironic, like being gored by a bull in a colorful candy kiosk. Mounds of mint Girl Scout cookies have mounted a retreat. I'm beginning to tremble like a milkshake in a blender. I grope for the last bar of Godiva, gone. My barren cupboard mocks me. Chocolate chips were preemptively chucked into a forgotten waste bin. Brownies have staged their last stand. No crumbs, even to sustain a mouse. The final tinsel kiss slid down the chute of my tongue. Its echoed sigh resounded in its ultimate meltdown. And Lord, deliver me from the temptation of Siren Reese's Pieces. Shall I venture then to make a visit in my voracious quest to the convenience store? Maybe just a pint of fudge swirl ice cream. My chocolate dreams becoming nightmare should be the golden key to my guided future recovery. Perhaps now, just a wee flute of chocolate liqueur. This year, I resolve to indulge no more my holy grail pursuit of Face Your Demons chocolate, even if to the sound of sacred music, the ultimate hot fudge sundae should rise from the deepest heated pit. Pause for station identification. Hello to all family and friends who showed up tonight and to everybody else who showed up as well. Okay, this next one is Sneak Peek at a Poet's Will. Got to say that very clearly, otherwise it becomes a sneak peek at a poet's will. But anyway, sorry, that's just a personal joke. Terrible, but anyway, Sneak Peek at a Poet's Will. This was a response to a poem by Galway Kinnell, which was titled Attending the Reading of a Poet's Will. Item, verses nurtured on marrow from singing bones under layers of dust. Item, stanzas dressed in flesh from the heart, draped in surplus brain pulsations, wrapped in packet with blood red ribbon. Item, excess of bottled tears sprinkles pavement, grows roses that bite when one stops to inhale. Item, lines borrowed or stolen, nudge blank mind in bold directions, serve fresh on special occasions, they'll bury stale thoughts separately. Item, crumpled bag, home to a few nibbled on metaphors, most emotions spent, some wisely, relish the remnants. Item, the desk that birthed overburdened pages can be left to no one. It labors without complaint when images gallop off the paper, become ingrained in splinters and stains. The legs wobble, speak with creaks, untranslated versions. Item, voices of verses captured with accurate tone. Napkins in other inspired fragments thrown in drawers for the moment. This is not the final statement, premature to lament unwritten passions. Volumes will increase, collections bound, the will be done. This is a short poem that was, this is a short poem inspired by a conversation with the late Walter Howard on a ride to a former venue of mine in Warwick, Rhode Island. It's called Karma. And it was a woman was, the epigraph is, a woman was sent to, said, a woman once said to Flaubert, I wrote 20,000 words today, and what did you do? Flaubert replied, I removed the comma that I put in last week. This is the poem. A comma tiptoes into all our lives. We pause as we pursue our sentence. No comma burrows within the bones. A comma constricts the breath when winter's hand grips the throat. A comma fish hooks your gut when the burden snags you in the net. A comma slow motions your dreams that drip through intravenous tubes. A comma gnaws through the ropes after death. The voice of the bell peals, then pauses.
Harris, I think
I'm done.
20, yeah,
one
20,
more.
If it's short.
Yeah. Okay. Right. This one's very short. Any echoes of Robert Frost are merely deliberate. Stopping by the show after Robert Frost. Whose show this is, I think I know. His home is in the shtetl, though. He will not see me stopping here to offer up most solemn prayer at perhaps the holiest time of year. He would wonder what hidden mistake would make my words quiver and my knees quake as I dive in your calm and reflecting lake. New mitzvahs avow to heal the earth, to show clear evidence of our worth, a chance for cleansing and future mirth. The ram's horn's voice is rich and deep. I am weary, the way is steep, but there are pleasures to God and man to keep. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Ellen Meyers, and thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.
Thank you, Harris. Our next reader is also a friend of mine, Christopher Reilley. And Christopher's on the board of the Worcester County Poetry Association. He was former poet laureate of Dedham, Mass, two-time Pushcart nominee and founder of the Dedham Poet Society. He's a copywriter and technical writer by day, novelist late at night, and as a working poet the rest of the time. His third collection, One Night Stanzas, is available from Big Table Publishing. Chris?
Thank you, Doug.
You're,
I
there
was
you go.
muted. Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Tonight, I'm going to be reading from uh, Grief Tattoos. I don't know if we can see that very well. Grief Tattoos, which was my very first book. It's no longer in print on the publisher's website, although it is still available for the Kindle on the evil Amazon. But I'd like to help keep it alive, so I'm going to read from it tonight. The first one I'm going to read is called The View from the Road. If you'd driven past our house on that late summer afternoon, you could be excused for thinking that we were simply 2 out of 3 generations enjoying the westering sun by sharing secrets and familial whispers. If you'd not seen me a few short minutes before, screaming on the grass beneath the drooping apple tree as my grandmother ran toward me, or my grandfather shouting, "Why, Chuck?" to my father's disappearing back, as he rushed away, slipping into his baby blue Cadillac with the redhead smoking in the passenger seat. If you'd not seen my mother cupping her hands under her face to keep blood from ruining her new carpet, or the ambulance that drove her and my grandmother up the hill to the hospital, it would be natural to assume that we lived the kind of lives that were written about in Highlights magazine. From the road, you could not see the torn screen door or the frame falling over on one hinge. You'd have no way to know what went on behind it. The next piece is called, thank you very much. Thank you. The next piece is called Self-Portrait. A stroke of ochre and I smell the earth, loamy and cool. A daub of blue and I have eyes to look up at his brush. I cannot free myself from this frame. I'm glued to this canvas, wearing his face, hooked and wired to his wall. He brushes past me and I hate him. Once the cool, fresh paint felt wonderful, creative, new. As the pink and red slash of my mouth huffs in indignation, he ignores me. The pliable flesh he created hardening into insoluble form, never to change again. I used to envy him, strutting to and fro beyond my frame. He painted me a broken form, only to emphasize his unique wholeness. Now, when his creased and worn face searches mine, like a father seeking truth in the eyes of his son, I know that I've won, for I'm the only one with a chance at immortality. This next piece, thank you very much, thank you. This next piece was a favorite of my publisher, whose name I saw her on the viewer list, so I know she's here. But this was one of her favorites back when she published the chapbook that is Grief Tattoos. This is called Luminaries Beware. Oh, you are so careful, so smart. Yet you seem to forget when you fuse a root beer float with molten ingots of pure gold, you cannot call their brief commingling a quickie, or even a metaphor for clash of values, or a froth of thermodynamics. Slam them together, generate sweet foaming heat, bring them in sync with one another, and from their sparks you will see Genesis, life and love in the making. For those whose vision is too bright to see, let them pacify themselves with pithy sayings on scraps of paper pulled from broken cookies after a meal. But for you, shining ones, for you, sweet poets, with visions burning bright and eyes that can see the plain truth for what it is, you may strap your language on like rockets and make it scream into the heavens so that even the gods may hear. Thank you. Thank you. This next piece from the same book is called Soul Windows. This is an ode to my wife, Susan. So hope I can get through this without joking up. Soul Windows. Her chocolate eyes look transplanted from her father's face. The singular color and the way she looks at you directly with no shame imparts the gentleness of her soul. If I pull up a chair beside her, I can watch her eyes dart back and forth behind her glasses as she reads, missing nothing in the fine print. Nothing but the truth. no matter how hard, no skimming and wishing. And then she turns, drops her chin, and looks at me over the tops of her glasses. And everything I know about her fierce integrity and unwillingness to give up the last of her innocence, her young heart, her fears and joys, they pressed themselves together all at once and forced themselves deep in my heart, all at once. I want to stand to attention, draw my sword, and swear my life. I want to run madly around the coffee table with my arms out like airplane wings, shouting sonnets. I want to pull those eyes close, enjoy the moment that's owed to us. Oh, I wish that I could get behind those eyes, settle into the driver's seat, connect those electrodes all over, feel her womanly heart. Oh, could I handle it? Would I shiver, hold my hands to my head, burst into tears? Does it take a long time to learn to live with a womanly heart? For now, there's nothing but those eyes looking at me over her glasses and that coy smile, because she knows what those eyes do to me. For now, there's only the face of my love, whose movements I struggle to parse. For now, there's only clumsy language, rusty, jagged, pig iron tongues grasping for purchase in the liquid silk of her soul. Thank you. Thank you very much. This next one, this one is called Causal Memories. While digging through a summer trunk in my dusty, cluttered attic, I came across an old photo of me at 55, smiling, with my arm draped over the shoulder of a stunningly beautiful young woman. In the background, you could see the skyscraper where I worked. The truly odd thing about this photo, and yes, I'm just very well aware of how odd this is, it's that I'm just shy of 40 years old, and I work in a vastly different office building, only 3 stories tall. Nevertheless, I can recall the moment clearly when this photo was snapped. The tie I'm wearing, I got for Christmas when I was 50. There's a stamp on my left hand from a concert we attended the night before, and the woman in the photo, laughing, clinging to me, wearing a sundress that I bought her, is my daughter, who's only now 11 years old. She looks happy. That makes me happy. And the me that is looks at me at the me that will be, and all they can think of is the me that was. And finally, my final poem for this evening is the final poem that wraps up this book. It's called We Laughed Together. We laughed together this morning. I had wanted to say that we don't do enough of that, laughing together. But the truth is, we do just enough to remember in the middle of fighting, enough to banish the pain, even if only temporarily. Your laugh touches me in low places, warming me. My laugh holds me aloft in stormy seas. 1,000 times more real than tears, if you know the reason we laughed this morning. And I thank you very much for your kind attention. I appreciate the audience. Thank you again. By all means, go to Big Table Publishing and buy the Kindle version of my book. Convince them it should be in print. Thank you.
And I know Robin Stratton from Big Table Publishing is here. I've been published by her. She's a fine publisher, editor, and human being.
She's the best.
She's the best.
She's the best.
Michael Keith is another a Bagel Bar member, a friend of mine, and he's a professor of communications at Boston College. He's the author of co-author of more than 24 groundbreaking books on electronic media, including one chosen by President Clinton for his official summer reading list. Beyond that, he's the author of an acclaimed memoir, a young adult novel, and 18 story collections. His latest, Insomnia 2, is from Mad Hat Press. He's been nominated and has received many awards for his writing. Michael Keith.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Ellen. Nice to see so many good friends and Bagel Bar members. And I wish we could see Robin. She's not revealing her face here. It's been so long. Anyway, I'm going to read pieces from my latest book, Insomnia 11. From
I'm
Matt.
sorry I said insomnia too.
Does look
Yeah.
like two, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And also I'll read some pieces from 3 manuscripts, new manuscripts. One is in production, one is looking for production, and the other is in the process of being developed. This first one is called To Be or Not To. He had no idea his poem was almost identical to one written by Robert Bly. In fact, he'd never read any of Bly's verse. That didn't matter to the dean of the college where he held a teaching position in the English department. He'd been accused of plagiarism by a critic in Plowshares, and as far as the dean was concerned, the assistant professor was a bold-faced appropriator. The young versifier was told he had to defend himself to keep his tenure-track position. As fate would have it, one of the foremost punctuation experts in the country also taught in the same department and defended him, claiming his young colleague's use of an ellipsis in his poem was proof of its originality, since Bly had shown a lifelong contempt for omissions. This one's called Curse of Cognizance. Garrett noticed he'd put his dirty boxers into the trash basket under rather than the hamper, and it troubled him. At his annual physical that afternoon, he told his doctor about it, and he was assured that the very fact he was aware of his mistake was a solid indication he was not experiencing early stage dementia. Later, Google indicated otherwise. This is called Insomnia 10. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. It was the bedtime prayer he'd been taught before he was even old enough to read, and it had haunted him after he came to understand what it meant, that dying in one's sleep was a possibility. Whenever the benediction entered his mind, he feared shutting his eyes and cursed his mother's good intentions. This is called A Hole in His World. He's only known one person named Emil in his entire life. He wonders how much better his life would have been had he known two. This is called The Winds of Mars. Over the past few nights, hard gusts kept him awake as they battered his house. They had not been forecast, and he wondered why, given their unusual strength. Surely they were gale force, he thought. In the morning, he checked the previous day's weather, but found no predictions of such powerful air currents in his area. He mentioned them to his friends, but they were not aware of anything out of the ordinary. Finally, he concluded that he alone was being assailed by zephyrs from another galaxy, and he felt flattered to be singled out from such a distance. This is called Programmed. Excuse me. We have our evening routine. At 6, we sit before the TV with our supper and watch the news. By 6:15, as the sports part of the broadcast comes on, I'm done with my meal, but my wife is only half through hers. She chews her food slowly and deliberately, and I tend to gulp mine. As the local news ends, we take our dishes to the sink and return for the national news with our desserts. This is called Fruits of War. There's a small indentation in the identification tag GIs are issued when they enter the military. The 1-inch piece of stainless steel hangs around the soldier's neck on a chain like a St. Christopher's medal. A medic positions the slot between the troop's front teeth when he's killed in battle and gives his jaw a good thump, driving the dog tag between his incisors so it won't fall out when his body is in transit back home. A practical design, if ever there was one. This is called What It Seemed Like to Him. Deep water fishing was a new experience for Felix. So it was with mild trepidation he had accompanied his brother-in-law on a fishing excursion into the Cook Inlet for halibut. No sooner was his line baited and launched, his rod gave a powerful tug, nearly causing him to fall overboard. He pulled at the reel until his arm lost feeling, and as his catch neared the side of the boat, a crewman hooked it aboard to a jarring cry. It landed near his feet, and to his horror, he saw he'd snagged a small, gasping, and flapping child. His impulse was to throw it back into the water, but he succumbed to the attaboys of his fellow anglers, and he had it filleted. This is called past perfect. The fact that she's an ex-wife troubles her. There's nothing good about being an ex-wife, she concludes, so she begins to plot how she might get her ex-husband to remarry her, thus erasing the negative prefix. When she broaches the subject with him, he says he's had enough of her to last a lifetime, and she'll have to adjust to the idea that she'll always be his ex-wife. She believes he's trying to suppress a chuckle and wonders if one remains an ex when one's ex is deceased. This is called Apothecary. This I actually wrote about an hour ago. Apothecary. Since the new CVS opened across from Wilbur's drugstore, business was down 70%. He was at a loss as to what to do, figuring he'd soon have to close. Then he decided to investigate what drew so many people to the chain store, and he stationed himself at the checkout counter to see what people bought. After 2 days of close observations, he found the majority of customers were purchasing adult diapers, something he had never carried. He quickly stocked his shelves with the disposable undergarments, placing notice on a large sign outside his store. Soon, sales were up to their previous level, and Wilbur was a very relieved and happy man. He couldn't express how thankful he was people were leaking. You invited me on, Doug. Okay, getting near the end here. This is called Insomnia 8. Chris heard his heartbeat through the pillow and was alarmed by its irregular movement. What the hell, he groaned, turning over. Never sleep on the side your heart is on. It's not good for you, he could hear his late father telling him. He regretted not taking his parents' advice years ago. The thought kept him awake and on his right side far into the night. This is called 1111. And then only one more short piece after that. The twin digits had first come to his attention a year ago when he'd encountered them on various devices 3 days running. After that, they popped up intermittently, often every few weeks, but now they were appearing with much greater regularity, at least once and sometimes twice in a week. Recently, he'd come to imbue them with special significance. It had to be more than sheer coincidence, he thought. His curiosity piquing, he questioned his friends and relatives and learned no one was having similar experiences. Finally, he went to the internet, where he found he was among a small group throughout the world who repeatedly happened upon the set of integers. While the mysterious phenomena had proven an interesting distraction, it began to irritate him. Thus, he chose to ignore the curious manifestations and did so without consequence for a time. And finally, FGM. We'd taken a sandy patch of road near Arusha at my request to get a closer look at a tower of giraffe. Suddenly, out of the bush emerged 3 young Maasai girls, all smiles and giggles. Humming and swaying in graceful unison, they offered us crude necklaces and bracelets they'd apparently made. How much, I asked, and they shrugged. My Zulu guide spoke to them in Swahili, and they shrugged again. Just give them what you call an American quarter, 600 shillings, he instructed. Why are they so happy, I asked. Oh, this a big day for them. They are women now. Responding to my look of confusion, he ran his outstretched thumb across his groin area, as if cutting the neck of a goat to bleed it. FGM is the title, stands for female genital mutilation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Well, we had quite an eclectic group of poets, and now we have the open mic. So just keep it to one poem, relatively short, and I think I'll pass this over to Ellen.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. First, I want to thank all of our poets, Harris, Chris, and Mike. It was really, really a treat to hear you read. And we'll start the open mic with Beatriz Alba del Rio.
Hi. COVID-1, fairy tale. High hidden in the shadows, in that sky that is a cage to the garden of the most recent full moons. There was a moon that seemed to be of gold. She had a splendor that almost crushed my retinas. And even though I appreciated her even more than the rubbing of your lips into my breasts, I know she's not made of gold. I know she's neither of gold nor of silver. I know she is only of papier-mâché, and that your voice echoes this moon-sculpted shape of cone-fluty elongated parables of past innocences. I also hear how your high-pitched voice resonates into the penumbra that is hiding, the silence of the COVID, the soar of the invisible soar, of that which can be seen but arises and reaches you and me and us all, and had muted the known world, the one that was missing a lot, and even more, that mutant being capable of keeping us inward, isolated, separated, but imagining the oneness of us all. Maybe that COVID, indefatigable being traversing your garden, the garden of the caged full moons. That COVID, which with its strangeness touches the foreign glass, the glass of others declaring their curfew, and to the violator who peeps outside protruding the nose. COVID, the invincible warrior, attacks you, kills you, and you died alone like an abandoned dog. In the forgotten alleys, nobody walks or transits, but this is not enough, since more than 500 bodies already left, while this moon of papier-mâché still continues seducing us with its phantasmagoric clarity of the petit mask of that not lived yet, of the cover of the fraudulent transparency, while you and I still continue construing love into pretendence kindness, some acts stumbling into the halls of hell, gooish, dark brown glued to eyes, while some others acts rise to the entanglement of light, bluish, evenly iced heaven. And those, the other humans into the sameness too, still dreaming about the papier-mâché, most recent full moons, no matter who, no matter when, no matter where. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatriz. And we'll bring up to the open mic now, DeWitt Henry.
This is called Medallion. Our family kept heirlooms, both obvious and strange. Coconut pirate heads with bandanas and wooden daggers in their teeth, a polar bearskin rug, a collapsible top hat. But most fascinating was a gold medallion with a photograph of my mother, posed and colorized and mounted under glass. She kept it on her desk. I'd never known her with dark hair, so young, so beautiful. I was 9 when she left alone for a vacation. We'd never been separated. I fell sick with a fever and begged my older sister to bring me the medallion, which I lifted from its case and kissed and pressed against my cheeks, feeling how cool the metal was. Soon after, days, not weeks, she filled my doorway, rushed in, gathered me in her arms. For my mother, the medallion had been an artifact of vanity, taken before the births of my brothers and sister, before my father's drink and adultery, before her own broken dreams. During her absence, she had decided to stay with the marriage, she explained. I was the writer home from college. I'd begun researching our family story and asked to see the medallion. My sister, in her mid-80s, divorced, house-ridden, and a continent away, remains the medallion's keeper for her daughters and grandsons. Thanks.
DeWitt, it's always nice to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
We'll bring Paulette Turco up to the mic now.
You. I'll read a triolet that kind of fits the month we're in. Plunge. Raindrops plunge through glistening air. In streaks of mist, they soak the ground, creating cloaks of haze and glare. Raindrops plunge through glistening air as tulips break through soil once bare, and children's boots splash puddled ground. Raindrops plunge through glistening air. In streaks of mist, they soak the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. And Keith Tornheim is next.
This
Keith,
is with
yeah.
this is with thanks to Harris and Doug, because I'm going to read from the latest of Ibbotson Street, also a COVID poem, Sailing the COVID Sea. We are in boats sailing the COVID Sea. In each boat, one person or two or a family. But to reach the far shore, we travel as a fleet, joined by electronic ropes, telephones, and Zoom lines. When the voyage is completed, we will have a big beach party, Greet each other with nearly forgotten hugs. Look around and see who is here and who may be missing. And we will build and light a pyre to memorialize those who disappeared into the sea. It will also serve as a beacon for some in leaky and battered boats, still struggling to reach the shore to our embrace. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And Chris O'Carroll is up next.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. I am not primarily a children's poet, but since I'm appearing tonight as Casey's opening act, I thought I would do a poem from my collection, The Joke's on Me, that is inspired by a well-known nursery rhyme. This is Night Sky. I live on the moon in a comfortable house. I sleep in a comfortable bed. But one thing I never find comfy one bit is a cow jumping over my head. The moon is the cheerfulest place you could live and the friendliest place you could visit. But mooing and swooping a path through our sky every night isn't courteous, is it? I totally get it. The party got wild. The spoon and the dish ran away. Natural enough that a frisky young calf would be up for a new way to play. But let's all agree, it's gone on long enough. Night after night, the same leap, the same horns and hooves flying by overhead, disturbing a moon dweller's sleep. If the cow wants to jump now and then, that's okay. Every creature deserves a good lark, but spare us some nights with our sky undisturbed, just earth glow, the stars, and the dark. So please, if your family has a pet cow, or you plan to acquire one soon, no matter what else you may train it to do, teach it not to jump over the moon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Casey, it's your turn now.
Well, this will be interesting. She's been squawking at all of you. She just learned how to clap. So throughout dinner, she was clapping for everyone. So this is Juliet. No, this is Juliet's first poetry reading. Florida Winter. Oh, and I'm reading from the Panhandle of Florida. Okay, ready? Florida Winter. Cicadas sing, Ybor cigars sing. Our corduroy and paisley bodies sway on any broken slat porch as we swap porch stories, sipping too sweet tea, ice melted, stolen whiskey poured loosely. Florida winter, but I am elsewhere, always elsewhere. Petting rows of sunflower stems, now in Napa Valley. The mother of my imagination beats sheets into the wind like she could wash the sky. The humid linens hiss back, even in this dream. Tuna melts on English muffins. My mother sat with me, crying. She was crying over daytime TV, newspaper clippings, and stomped chewed cardboard, and a watercolor original of some bridge. I saw this, I swear I saw this, in Amsterdam along the canals, back when I was 20, before the baby, before all bridges looked the same, before even water stained, watermarks, bridges, lights, memories, bleeding, everything bleeding into each other. And I see San Francisco most clearly, driving through fog, sand dunes sweeping streets, Ocean Beach, another day of fear, my mother, somewhere, chopping celery mindlessly. What's wrong, Mommy? But the fridge only hums, and Dad soaks in his new jacuzzi. We walked when he worked, Mom and me, to the lake by the park, back in Wisconsin, before we leave. I carried the unwashed purple quilt. Never Peter Rabbit or Good Night Moon for me, like I pretended I read too at the high slide. She held my wrist. Tell me, mustard dress and red lips, cigarette drippings in the grass. Do you prefer Nietzsche, Goethe, or Plato? I peeled blades of grass back, ripped leaves at their seams, seeing wide white wedding skirts swish in the clouds above me. Thus spoke Zarathustra at night, and mean Katie waited in the morning, her fists over stickled handlebars. I am trying to say that I don't know what home means, if not for a tiled living room floor somewhere in Chicago in January. Red wine boiling and rose hips and scooping out mangoes with baby spoons, a vase at our feet, empty, flowers long dead. And yet I can still hear those cicadas scream. Thank you for putting up with that screaming.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Juliet.
Yay.
Well, we've reached the end of the signups for the open mic, and it's been a delightful evening. Doug, I want to thank you so much. You're always such an excellent host for the poetry series, and I'm already looking forward to next year. Hopefully
Yeah.
next year we might be able to do this in person at the library. No predictions because we're not fully open yet, but I got my fingers crossed for all of us.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Lovely to hear you, Casey, and great to meet you, Juliet.
I think she's going to be a future poet.
She
Yeah.
might be a
Yeah,
singer. I mean, with that
yeah.
voice, she really might want to be a singer.
Yeah.
There's not that competition there.
Oh no, she was competing. She said, listen to mine.
Or
Adorable.
Really wonderful. Thank you all so much. I brought a couple of students from my class, by the way, tonight. So we're all from different places, from Maine, some of us, from Florida. So it's really nice to be able to
Really?
see everyone. Yeah, so thank
That's
you so
great.
much. Really
All
great
right.
reading.
I had the privilege of teaching with Casey at Endicott College, and now you're doing it remote.
Exactly, yeah.
She ran the writing center there. She really did a
No,
great
I
job.
missed it.
I think that baby's crying because she wants to read.
I think so too. I know. Yeah.
She's heard us and she said, I can do better than that.
good note. Good night, everybody.
Yes,
Good night.
bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good time.
Thank you.
Good night.
a good
Thanks,
time. Thanks.
everyone. Bye-bye. I'll end the meeting now. Take care, everyone.
Good night.